Welcome everyone to Ready, Preparing for Disasters and Emergencies. Our KCS Youth Club is putting this presentation together for everyone because they want you to be informed. They want you to know how to be prepared or be prepared when there's a disaster or an emergency that's happening unexpectedly. September was National Preparedness Month. So that basically triggered the reason why they are holding this presentation. And the hurricane season is not over. Hurricane Ian, we all heard about that one. Hurricane Ian was happening, and hurricane season is through November 30th. And you will learn more about that as the leads go through each of the topics that they'll be going through today. But before that, let's go ahead and watch a video that says, what is a disaster or a hazard or an emergency?
Happens that you weren't expecting. Very funny, Drew. But if you're prepared for it, you'll know what to do.
The same goes for a disaster.
A disaster is something that could hurt a lot of people, cause damage, or cut off the electricity, phones, or water across a large area.
Like when a hurricane caused our town to lose power for 4 days.
Or when we got snowed in by the blizzard.
And we didn't have to go to school for 2 weeks. Yes!
There are other things that are bad or dangerous too, like hazards and emergencies.
A hazard is a source of danger. For example, a pile of dried out wood near a gas can that's right next to a home would be a fire hazard.
And fast rushing water over a road poses a flood hazard.
How about an emergency? Like when I'm starving and I need a burger now?
A real emergency is something that happens to an individual or a small group of people.
Like a home fire, where you have to call 911 for help.
911, what's your emergency?
How is an emergency different from a disaster?
A disaster affects a lot of people and causes a lot of emergencies. Whether it's a disaster, emergency, or hazard, we all need to be prepared.
Okay, so hopefully everyone got an idea of what is a disaster, what's a hazard, and what's an emergency, and how they differ from each other. Now, the next video we're going to be showing, it's going to put you to a test.
While something happens that you weren't expecting.
I'm going to go to the next slide. And that's going to tell you, are you prepared for an emergency? Okay, so basically, when you're watching this video, we want you to make sure that you put yourself in their shoes, that family's shoes, and try to follow along with the instructions that are given. Just think about it and see where you fit in this video or what your answers would be.
You have this picture in your mind, like, yeah, just grab the important stuff. Grab Aaron and Troy.
Car key, cell phone, children, and you're driving away.
I was motionless. You think you're ready, but are you? It's scary. It seriously could happen tomorrow.
Those considerations are really part of the dynamic that's actually going to happen under chaos.
We all know how important it is to prepare for emergencies, but how ready are you really? Today, we put a family to the test.
My name's Matt Slusher. I'm a battalion chief with the Placer Rolls Fire Department, and there's a fire approaching. We're going to need you to evacuate right now. You have 10 minutes to evacuate.
Where's the birth certificates and all that?
They're in my top drawer in my dresser. And I'm gonna go get the dogs. Okay, grab a dog.
Crap. I don't know where they are.
You have 8 minutes left.
Let's take all these pictures. Here, grab this.
Think about water and food, any medications you might need. Consider being prepared for 72 hours away.
Yeah, this is not 72 hours. Where's your soccer stuff?
It's right on this wall right here.
Sprinkler system's on to help as the wildfire approaches.
We got a charger, we have the iPad, our family timer.
Do you want this one down? On your last sweep, if you could make sure all the windows are closed so that no embers could get through into the house.
Just grab Taryn and Troy, just a set of clothes.
I'll set these in here.
All right.
Grab any other items that you need.
Minute and a half left, and then we need to go.
How close is the fire?
I don't know, we have to evacuate. Just get in the car with the dogs.
How are you feeling right now?
Oh my gosh. I could cry. Like, it's kind of like emotional.
What's that look like next week? Do you think this is something you would probably do as a family again to talk about it and practice? And maybe what would it look like if we were to come back next week?
Giving them more responsibility in the situation, like not just like sitting there holding the dogs. Like, I mean, I think we could totally put together and make the plan a little bit more solid.
And I would encourage you to have a list of those things, even prioritized. So, you know, if medications are the number one thing you need to grab, that's at the top of the list. And then your cell phone chargers or your birth certificates at the top. And the more time you have, the further down the list you get.
Okay.
But you know where the go bag is and you know where your list is, so that you have some organization. Helps you, you know, kind of bring calm to the chaos.
Me, personally, I probably would just be like, let's just go. I would probably grab wallet, keys, phone, birth certificates, and leave. Maybe 1 or 2 pictures. But I honestly don't feel the need to grab like everything.
I would have just had them be more accountable to pack their, like, get 2 changes of clothes, grab some snacks, let's go.
To see you get kind of emotional, kind of like, oh wow,
yeah.
it can be
Scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's seriously, it's very eye-opening.
Yes.
Like, it just makes you think, yeah, like what to put on that to-get list, or what, you know what I mean? What to put on that list of, and where is the priority?
Those considerations are really part of the dynamic that's actually going to happen under chaos.
I think when it comes down to it, you need to be ready just to get out. I think that's probably more important than that, and then grabbing your loved ones, kids, animals, and just getting out.
Nothing is worth us getting hurt. Like, if we're together, that's all that matters.
Okay, so hopefully you were able to go ahead and think through what would happen if you were called on to be ready in 10 minutes to evacuate from your home. Are you prepared? How prepared are you if you think you're prepared? So the team today is going to be talking about what kind of disasters we could get based on the history that we've had so far. There's a lot more that could happen, but they're going to touch on the major ones that we could get affected in our area specifically. And they're going to be going through explaining what the disasters are, how to prepare for each of them. And some of them may some of them may have overlapping information, but in general, they'll be going through what you need to do specifically for that type of disaster. Okay, so with that said, we're going to have our next slide. It's going to be going through this order: hurricane, flood, tornado, earthquake, thunderstorm, snowstorm, and blizzards, extreme heat, drought, wildfire, land or mudslides, and climate change. And first up, we have about hurricanes by Anslin and Nanda.
Hi everyone, my name is Nanda.
And my name is Anslin.
I will be telling you a little bit about some major hurricanes that have happened in America. First of all, what is a hurricane? A hurricane is basically a large storm that is spinning in circles at really high speeds. They travel across water and can cause cars and trees to fly everywhere. That shows how dangerous and strong they can get. A current hurricane that is happening is Hurricane Ian, which is really hurting Florida and South Carolina. It's a Category 4 hurricane, which means that it is really dangerous and it is destroying buildings and causing a lot of loss of life. 3 other hurricanes that have happened in the past are Hurricane Irma, Rita, and Katrina. These 3 hurricanes were Category 5 and were devastating. We are still recovering in certain parts because of the effects of these hurricanes. A fun fact is that all hurricanes before 1978 were named after women. Now that you know a little bit about hurricanes, Anslin will tell you about how to prepare for one after we watch this video.
Okay, sorry.
Cyclone typhoon, hurricane. All of these names are used around the world to describe the most powerful storm known to man. Hurricanes are unpredictable, but scientists have a thorough understanding of how hurricanes form and sustain their power. In the Atlantic Ocean, hurricane season peaks during the late summer months when tropical waters are the warmest. Hurricanes form from a cluster of thunderstorms that suck up the warm, moist air and move it high into Earth's atmosphere. The warm air is then converted into energy that powers the hurricane's circular winds. These winds spin around a low-pressure center called the eye, which can provide a 20 to 30-mile radius of eerie calm. Encircling it is the eye wall, a towering ring of clouds with some of the fastest wind speeds of the hurricane. Surrounding the eye wall are curved bands of clouds, the rain bands, often tens of miles wide, releasing sheets of rain and sometimes tornadoes. When a tropical storm's winds reach at least 74 miles per hour, it becomes a hurricane. The hurricane then receives a category ranking of 1 to 5 on the Saffir-Simpson scale, based on its wind speed and potential damage. But wind speed isn't always the most dangerous component when hurricanes come near land. It's storm surge. Storm surge is caused when winds from an approaching hurricane push water towards the shoreline up to 20 feet above sea level and can extend 100 miles. 90% of all hurricane deaths are the result of storm surge. While hurricanes can cause mass devastation, just like other natural disasters, they serve a higher purpose within the global ecosystem. Hurricanes help regulate our climate by moving heat energy from the equator to the poles, keeping the Earth's temperature stable. Over time, science has helped us to better understand hurricanes and predict their paths, saving lives through early warning systems and helping us build better infrastructure to protect our cities. The more we study these complex storms, the better we can prepare for them and minimize their impact on human lives.
Do you want to watch this video now or later on, Anslin?
We can watch it after.
Okay, go for it.
It's the next slide.
Okay.
Let me now talk about how to prepare for hurricanes. Hurricane season starts on May 15th in the North Pacific and June 1st in the Atlantic and the Caribbean. It ends on November 30th. Before a hurricane comes, you should find out if your area is prone to flooding and if you're safe to remain in your house. If you're not, you're going to have to find another shelter that you and your family can be safe in. If you are safe to remain in your house during a hurricane, you should make sure you have prepared a small interior room, closet, or hallway on the lowest level for you and your family to gather during the hurricane. You should take all your stuff that you need, for example, non-perishable food supplies, bottled water, a first aid kit, and so many other things. You should also make sure your car is not under the tree and it has full tank of gas, because you need to move to a safer place if they told you to evacuate. During the hurricane, you should observe and check the news to see what the forecast and updates are. You should turn off the electricity at the main beaker if flooding happens, because if you don't, the gas and electric equipment will damage. Stay away from windows and outer doors because the broken glass will blow into you. Turn off all devices and machines so we can reduce the damage of the energy burst. So even though we cannot stop a hurricane, I'm hoping this information would help us better be prepared.
Okay, So before we get to the next slide, I will just go back once and then just an image of what happened with Hurricane Ian. That's the most recent hurricane that we had. This is a time-lapse video from Florida, Fort Myers. You can see that there's a building here, there's water coming out, and there's a house here, and later on water keeps coming, more and more water keeps coming. This was actually featured, this video has been featured in many venues, right? Washington Post, CNN, and all these other channels. And you can see the reason why it's showing that. And this happens, not in a day's time. Once it happens, it's very quickly happening. You see that the tree is kind of now filled up. That house slipped away. So that's how powerful water can be when that storm surge that they talked about from a hurricane can happen, right? Basically, all this water gets dumped and it's just going to put everything on its path while it flows through. There's nothing that's stopping it. It's not very powerful. Just wanted to show that and say that it's not to scare, but to understand that it is important to be prepared for it, so that if it happens in our area, and we have had hurricanes, Hurricane Katrina is something that I know that I have experienced, not to this level, definitely, but we've had a few stuff like that's happened. So we'll go to the next slide. This is on NOAA's website. So it's kind of like a breakdown of what Anselin said. They have a detailed information that you can find, which is determining your risk. That's what Anselin first said, whether you are in a flood-prone area, trying to figure that out. Where is your house located? What are the things that you need to know about that location? So things like that, you need to kind of find out. Is it a tornado-prone area? Things like that. Same thing with here, evacuation plan. Anselin already went through that. Disaster supplies. Getting an insurance checkup, that's basically for parents here, trying to find out about flood insurance and insurance that the government has that you can take on your home for it, if something like that to happen. Strengthen your home. So if you need to cover windows, secure those outdoor items, these things, you hear this in the news when there is a watch or a warning that's out there. When you are listening to the alerts, always remember whenever you get the text alert or on the radio, you hear that there is a hurricane watch, or there is a tornado watch, or there's a thunderstorm watch. That's your first signal that says, hey, I need to slow down, stop what I'm doing, and make sure that my kit is ready or my communication plan is intact. And everybody who needs to know that, they have that information. So it's important to make that action, do that action when you hear there is a watch going on, because you don't want to wait until you get a warning. When it's a warning, that means it's already in progress, and we may most likely be affected by that. So we don't want to wait until there's a warning. Most often in our areas, whenever we hear a watch, it usually goes away after a while, which is good, right? You're getting a good warning. You check your things, you make sure you're ready. If nothing happens, good. But if something does happen, we are prepared, and then we could take the best action possible at that point to make the right decisions. So writing a complete, having a complete written plan, it's basically just to, when you're in a panic mode, we are not going to be able to think on our feet and think about everything that we need to do at that point, because our brain is in the panic mode. So if you have a written plan, it's easy to go through that checklist and say, I have this, 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 and this. Yes, I'm done. It's good to go. You're helping your brain to process that information under stress with the written plan. So do that if you haven't already. Okay, we'll go to the next disaster topic, that is flood, by Jinu and Nandita. Jinu, is Nandita here?
No, she's not here.
Okay, so Nandita actually has another event. So Jinu, they prepared material together. Jinu will talk about it. Go ahead, Jinu.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jinu, and I will be informing you guys of what a flood is and how to stay safe and prepared in case you're ever in this situation. So what is a flood? A flood is when land that is usually dry gets overrun by water. Flash floods happen when thunderstorms move over the same area, one after another. They usually occur within 6 hours of the rainfall, and this type of flood is very dangerous. Nearly half of flood fatalities are vehicle related. And now we're going to watch this quick video about floods.
Running late, and your path is blocked by water crossing the road. It doesn't look that deep, so you decide to drive through it. Bad decision. And it may be your last.
I'll go to the next slide.
Yep. All right. So 90% of the declared natural disasters, like presidentially, are due to floods. One example of a flood is one that happened in Kerala, which KCS raised $35,000 to help support the families and restore their homes. There was also the historic flooding in Virginia, Richmond, on the James River, and we have Hurricane Ian. There was potential flooding Southern Virginia. Next slide, please.
Do you want to go through the video first, or?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, so as you saw in the video, the flooding can happen anytime and anywhere. It's not because it can happen in any climate and anywhere. So it's not that we are protected from it or only some regions are affected by it. It is everybody who is affected by it. Okay.
Thank you. All right. So what can you do in order to prepare for the flood? So one thing that you can do is stay informed. You can get to higher ground. You can obey evacuation orders. You can practice electrical safety, avoid floodwaters, and make sure to clean your debris out of your gutters or your drainage areas. That way the water doesn't increase flooding, basically. Keep important documents in waterproof containers. So that way they don't, they get wet and get destroyed. And if you stay indoors, make sure to get to higher ground. So that way, if the water were to leak into your house, you're a little bit safer that way. Now we're going to watch this other video on wireless emergency alerts and how they can help.
And we highly recommend that everybody do this if you don't already have it on your phone.
Flooding in a flash. Don't be caught off guard. If you have a smartphone, chances are it has a built-in feature to automatically receive and display wireless emergency alerts from the National Weather Service when flash flooding and other hazards are happening nearby. You will not be charged to receive these alerts, so keep them enabled on your phone. They could save your life. To learn more, visit these sites.
Okay, so if you don't have your emergency alerts already signed up on your cell phone as a text, definitely go ahead and do that. It will definitely help you.
All right, next we have Tanishq and Sayuj with tornadoes.
All right, one sec. Cool. Hi everyone, my name is Tanishq and I'm going to talk about tornadoes. Unfortunately, Sayuj isn't here, so I will be presenting his information as well. First of all, what is a tornado? A tornado is a rotating column of air touching the ground, and they are usually found within thunderstorms. Tornadoes are very dangerous and deadly, as they can have wind speeds that range from 200 to 300 miles per hour. Not only can tornadoes be destructive, they can last up to 20 minutes to an hour. In the past 4 years, there has been an average of almost 10 tornadoes per year in Maryland. Next slide, please. All right, so some warning signs of a tornado can be a dark greenish sky, a strange quiet occurring within or shortly after a thunderstorm, a loud roar, an approaching cloud of debris, especially at ground level, or debris falling from the sky. As you can see in that picture, that is an example of an incoming tornado. Next slide, please. All right. So now we will watch these short clips to learn even more about tornadoes and how tornadoes form in each country and whether they are weak or strong.
Occur on 6 of the 7 continents. The country with the most tornadoes based on land size is the United Kingdom, with an average of about 33 tornadoes reported each year. But the country with the greatest overall number of tornadoes and the most intense is the United States, with over 1,000 reported annually. Tornadoes, no matter where they occur, are classified as either supercell tornadoes, which form within supercells, the most powerful class of thunderstorms, or non-supercell tornadoes, which are smaller and weaker and form within non-supercell storms.
The next one.
Advanced Fujita EF scale classifies tornadoes from a rating of EF0 to EF5. The rating is based on a number of factors, such as the damage a tornado causes and the Doppler radar estimates of its wind speeds. EF0 tornadoes are the weakest, with wind speeds between 65 to 85 miles per hour. EF5 tornadoes are the strongest, with wind speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour. One of the strongest tornadoes recorded occurred in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma in 1999. Born from a supercell thunderstorm, the EF5 tornado had wind speeds of over 300 miles per hour. It resulted in 36 fatalities, injured nearly 600, and caused about $1 billion in damages.
Okay. Next slide.
All right, so if there was a tornado warning or a tornado watch, one thing you can do is to prepare and find shelter. Also, it is recommended to go to the lowest level in the building. Avoid windows, glass objects, or mobile homes. And if you're outside, get away from the tornado and other cars or trees. It is suggested that if a tornado is very close, you should lie flat on the ground. All right, next up is thunderstorms with Kevin and Mahima.
Okay, let me know when you guys are ready.
Hey everyone, my name is Kevin, and with me is Mahima, and today we're going to be talking about thunderstorms. So first we have some videos about thunderstorms, and we'll be showing that.
Thunderstorms are showers accompanied by lightning and thunder. While violent, these weather phenomena are common, with about 2,000 occurring at any moment worldwide. There are 4 major types of thunderstorms: single cell, which are small, weak, and isolated storms; multi-cell, a common type of storm that includes a cluster of thunderstorms; squall line, a collection of storms that can form a line hundreds of miles long; and supercells, the most intense kind of storm capable of producing tornadoes.
So the reason why the leads have chosen to kind of go into the details of these terms and the categories and the names for those is when you hear the news, you would actually hear that it's a category 5 storm, and they would say that it's a supercell tornado. And then knowing these terms and what those means would help us, again, pay attention and prepare when you hear about that watch first. Okay, so we'll just play the next video.
While thunderstorms are necessary for maintaining balance in the atmosphere, they can also be hazardous. Lightning strikes create fires. Excessive rainfall can cause flash flooding. and high-speed winds from tornadoes can destroy homes.
Can I go to the next slide?
So you guys learned a bit about thunderstorms in the video. So what exactly is a thunderstorm? So thunderstorms are rain showers where you can hear a loud crashing or rumbling noise, and all thunderstorms have lightning. They usually occur in the spring and summer months, but they can happen at any time. Thunderstorms can happen in any of the states, but are more common in the southern states, such as Texas and Florida. And during a thunderstorm, you'll see the lightning before you hear the thunder, because the speed of light is much faster than the speed of sound. And some ways you could prepare is by having a first aid kit, which is accessible in your home, and having an emergency plan ready for you to do in case of thunderstorms or other natural disasters. And you can also stock up on food, because in case you have to stay inside the house, you can have food and water. And another thing you can do is cut down or trim trees nearby, which can decrease the chance of a tree falling on your house during a thunderstorm. And you can make sure that your devices are charged so you can contact others in case of an emergency. Next slide.
There's a lot of ways to stay safe during thunderstorms. If you're outside, you can seek shelter, you can stay away from trees, stay away from bodies of water, and make sure you're not near any metal objects. And when you're indoors, make sure you avoid contact with water and don't use electronics connected to outlets.
Okay. And as the image here says, you guys can see that it's just a myth that the lightning never strikes twice in the same place. It does happen, or it can happen at the same time, multiple times in the same place. And so when you hear thunder, you go indoors. Don't be under a tree like Kevin and Mahima just said. All right. And they said if you are outdoors and if you cannot find somewhere to go indoors, then what you do is you avoid natural lightning rods, such as tall isolated trees in an open area or the top of a hill, and metal objects such as wire fences, golf clubs, and metal tools. If at least the parents here might have heard about the incident that happened in front of the White House, where I believe a couple of people, or 3 or 4 people actually, they stood by the tree, or they kind of found shelter under the tree, and which was the wrong choice to make. So it's a natural lightning rod, right? Such as tall trees. So we shouldn't be doing that. So just a reminder. All right. Next up, we have Earthquake by Anaka and Malavya, or Anu and Maru.
Hello, my name is Anu.
And my name is Malu.
Here is a video about earthquakes. The first section explains why earthquakes happen.
Earthquakes occur around the world. They've been recorded on all 7 continents, but most quakes take place in just 3 regions. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge, an underwater line that runs down the Atlantic Ocean, the Alpine Belt, which stretches from the Mediterranean to Southeast Asia, and the Circum-Pacific Belt, which traces along the edges of the Pacific Ocean and is where about 80% of all earthquakes occur. These areas experience the most earthquakes due to what lies beneath the surface. Earthquakes are the result of pressure, specifically pressure caused by extreme stress in the Earth's crust. That stress can be caused by volcanic activity or even man-made activities in certain areas.
The second section talks about the largest recorded earthquake.
The largest recorded earthquake occurred near Valdivia, Chile in 1960. Nestled within the Circum-Pacific Belt, the Valdivia earthquake was the most powerful in a series of quakes that struck the region, measuring at a magnitude of about 9.5. In addition to causing devastating tremors on land, The earthquake also generated a deadly tsunami reaching up to 80 feet high. The tsunami raced across the Pacific Ocean, hitting faraway countries like the Philippines and Japan. In fact, data from seismographs show that the shock waves emitted by the Valdivia earthquake continued to shake the entire planet for days.
It's pretty powerful. Okay, can I go to the next slide?
Yep.
So basically, when an earthquake occurs, everything on top of the surface will shake, things like building, furniture, and people. And sometimes the shaking can cause buildings to break or fall.
If you know that your location is a place where earthquakes may occur, it's really good to know where earthquake buildings are. And one way to prepare before earthquakes is to make sure that anything big like refrigerators and TV stands are tied to the wall or the floor.
If you're in a building when an earthquake is happening, make sure you're supposed to drop to the floor, hold your head, and hold on to your shelter or a piece of furniture.
A Richter scale is used to measure an earthquake. Typically, when an earthquake is measured 0 to 2, it's not felt as much by people.
However, when it's measured 5 to 6, walls may crack and furniture may move. When an earthquake is measured above 6, be sure to be aware of your surroundings while staying safe. Many buildings and roads and bridges may be disrupted.
Next, we have blizzards and snowstorms with Ishan and Roshan.
And before I go to that, just wanted to say that if you go back to the, so we're going to be sharing this presentation with you. And if you continue to watch these videos, that we're only showing clips from these videos. And then if you continue to watch it, you can see that the scales, there's a universal scale for earthquakes specifically. It's, so new information is also developing. So stay current. It's our duty as we prepare. That's also something to always know that, you have the up-to-date information. And you get that too. Okay, so that's just for anyone listening. Okay. All right, so Ishan and Roshan, when you're ready.
Yep. Hi everyone, my name is Ishan. My name is Roshan. And we're going to talk about blizzards and snowstorms. So first, we're going to watch a short video to learn the difference between a blizzard and a snowstorm.
Exactly is the difference between a blizzard and a snowstorm? All right, let's talk about what a blizzard is. According to the United States National Weather Service, a blizzard is characterized by the combination of the following weather events. 1. There are either sustained winds or frequent wind gusts of 35 miles per hour or more. 2. The visibility levels are at least less than a quarter of a mile due to the amount of falling snow. And 3. Weather forecasts have determined that both of these conditions will be seen for 3 hours or longer. Now, it's important to note that blizzards don't have to involve active snowfall. Rather, thick snow on the ground may be blown around by harsh winds, which will significantly reduce visibility. This phenomenon, however, is referred to as a ground blizzard. Okay, what is a snowstorm? So on the other hand, snowstorms are largely considered to be much less severe than a blizzard, mainly because it doesn't involve high winds and low visibility. That doesn't make them less dangerous though, especially if you're driving or walking on icy roads and other slick surfaces. Snowstorms are characterized by either near freezing or below freezing temperatures, as well as precipitation such as snowfall, sleet, ice, and freezing rain.
Next slide.
But what exactly?
All right, so in this presentation, we're going to focus mainly on blizzards because, as the video said, snowstorms are way less severe. So a blizzard is a type of dangerous winter storm that has large amounts of blowing snow. It's categorized by its high winds of at least 35 miles per hour and the low visibility of less than a quarter mile for 3 hours. By comparison, under ideal conditions, people have almost 3 miles of visibility. The last major blizzards in the United States that you might remember, were the December 2019 blizzard and the January 2016 blizzard. Both of these blizzards affected a lot of the East Coast, and schools were affected schools were closed for multiple days because of them. Now that we know what blizzards are, let's learn how to prepare for them.
So it's highly likely that you're going to lose power, so have a lot of non-perishable food and bottled water to last you a couple of days. And invest in a generator to help bring back power, just in case you got to watch the news, charge your phone, or use the microwave. And make sure your house is properly insulated, as it gets very cold, because if you lose power, you can't have heating, and at night especially, it would get pretty cold. So have batteries for flashlights, as there's no light if the power is gone, so at night you're going to need some way to see. So either flashlights or candles would be helpful. And like I mentioned earlier, it gets cold, so blankets and warm clothes would be super helpful. And then finally, you need gas for your vehicles, generators, or even snow blowers. Next slide.
So if a blizzard actually happens, the number one rule is to stay inside. If you are outside when the blizzard starts, then find shelter immediately. If you absolutely have to go outside, then cover all your exposed skin with layers of loose clothing, jackets, hats, scarves, and mittens. Also, make sure not to drive because the limited visibility can cause accidents, and do not waste your phone battery in case you need to communicate with the local authorities. Next, we have extreme heat with Kieran and Praneet.
So just before we get to that, while we are talking about if you must go outside, then cover exposed skin with these items. So our KCS Women's Forum is actually doing a winter drive. So if you have winter clothing, they're also taking other supplies, household items, and items for babies, personal care items, hygiene items, things like that. So it's all on the website, kcsmw.org. If you go there, you can find under Women's Forum what all materials are being collected for this winter drive. It's running through October 23rd, Sunday, October 23rd. There are 4 drop-off locations, 2 in Maryland and 2 in Virginia. So definitely do, especially for you kids, if you have clothes that, if you have winter clothes that you're not able to fit into anymore, and they are like new or barely used, then definitely go ahead and think about donating that. You can find out from one of your parents or reach out to me. And one of us here, one of the adults here, or the kids here, and you'll be able to get that information for you. Okay. Kiran and Praneet, when you're ready.
Hello, my name is Kieran.
And my name is Praneet, and we'll be talking about heat waves. So first off, what is a heat wave? A heat wave is a long period of abnormal extreme heat for more than 2 days. Heat waves can occur with or without high humidity and have potential to cover a large area, exposing a high number of people to hazardous heat. Why should we care? Heat waves are the most deadly natural disaster in the US, with its fatalities dwarfing other weather-related disasters. Some statistical approaches estimate more than 1,300 deaths per year in the US due to heat waves. Next slide, please. This graph shows heat waves being the most dangerous natural disaster over a span of 30 years. And in the past year alone, the Washington metropolitan area has experienced 2 extreme heat-related emergencies with temperatures exceeding 90 degrees Fahrenheit and resulting in several deaths.
Extreme heat requires our body to work harder to maintain a stable body temperature. Sometimes we are unable to do so due to our sweat mechanics being overloaded. This can cause heat stress or hyperthermia, which includes heat cramps, heat exhaustion, and the most fatal, heat stroke. The elderly, infants, children, and people with underlying health conditions are most prone to these illnesses. Next slide. The heat index is what the temperature feels like to the human body when relative humidity is combined with air temperature. This means that even if a temperature is low and the humidity is high, the human body will still experience intense heat. We can use the index in the same way we look at the Richter scale as a measure of how much heat the average adult body is able to take. Next slide, please. In terms of preparation, we cannot downplay the risks of extreme heat and compromise our health. Understand your own fluid intake and your own body response to heat. Make sure that your home is ready with supplies, check on appliances, properly insulate your house, and look for nearby cooling stations. In the middle of a heat wave, always try following these 3 guidelines. Stay indoors, stay hydrated, and stay informed.
So this definitely was news to me, or it was new information to me that, extreme heat was one of the deadlier disasters, and did not know that. So that was definitely good information. Thank you. Good one. Okay. Next we have yeah. Go for it, Mane. Sorry.
Next we have Catherine Joyce about drought.
So Joyce wasn't able to come today, so I'll be presenting. Next slide. Yeah. So what is a drought? A drought is a period of time when a specific place doesn't receive enough water due to the lack of either rain or snow. This can cause a reduced soil moisture in groundwater, as well as lower stream flow, crop damage, and just general water shortage for the area. So what can we do in case of a drought? First of all, we should avoid taking baths and opt for shorter showers instead. Avoid letting water run if you're either not using it or if you're waiting for it to heat up. Set the appropriate water level for your laundry load. Avoid leaving sprinklers and hoses unattended. And although these are all tips that are great for when you're in a drought, they're also important to pay attention to, regardless of what natural disaster you could be suffering through, since water is a valuable and very limited resource. So you can visit Ready.gov/drought for tips on indoor and outdoor water conservation to learn more. Next slide. This is a intense.
So as you can see, it's a US
of droughts, around the US. And although you can see that Maryland is rarely impacted by droughts or almost not impacted at all, it's important to know what could be caused by droughts or why they're important in general, as they do devastatingly impact other regions of the US. Next slide.
And just wanted to add one more thing. So you can definitely go to this website, droughtmonitor.unl.edu, to get the drought monitor. Again, I was not aware that we had drought conditions in the US. Apparently we do, and it's an extreme drought conditions in these places. And why does that matter to us? Because we don't grow everything that we eat here, or all the things that we get in our state might not be from our state. So it might be coming from these states in the West. So if they have real drought conditions that are happening, then it's going to affect our things that we got to buy, and we don't have, supply anymore, and prices can go up, and many other things that has a ripple effect from that. So it is definitely important to understand the importance of conserving water. So when you are running water, brushing your teeth and letting it run, try to shut it off and then use it as you need. Simple things like that. That in the grand scheme it makes a difference, but it does. We've had drought conditions. I know that I remember, and I'm sure Anil Anand here remembers, and a few of the parents may remember, back in the days we had a drought condition here, and we were asked not to water our lawns. So these can happen here. Okay. All right, next up we have Catherine, did you have another slide, or you're done, Mine? That was it, right? Sorry.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Wildfire with Abhay and Hima.
So Abhay and I will be explaining what a wildfire is. Next slide. So this is an introduction video to what a wildfire is.
On average, wildfires burn up to 5 million acres of land in the United States each year. While they can start naturally, wildfires are often caused by humans, with devastating consequences. Wildfires are large, uncontrolled infernos that burn and quickly spread through wild landscapes. Types of wildfires may include forest, brush, and peatland fires, depending on the landscapes affected. Wildfires require three components known as the fire triangle: a heat source, fuel, and oxygen. Heat sources such as the sun, a hot bolt of lightning, or a smoldering match can supply enough heat to spark a fire. That spark then turns into flames when fuel or any flammable material is present. Dry, dead grasses, leaves, and trees are common fuels for wildfires, but so are living vegetation called green fuels. Pine trees and other evergreens contain flammable oils that can burn when exposed to a heat source. As the fuel burns, the resulting flames feed and thrive off of oxygen. When air movement or wind occurs, not only is more oxygen supplied to the fire, but it may also help transport and spread the flames. Since wildfires occur outdoors, they have a nearly endless supply of oxygen from our atmosphere to burn. Many wildfires are the result of natural causes. A warmer climate and weather patterns like El Niño can create the hot, dry conditions necessary for fires to erupt. However, about 90% of wildfires are caused by human activity, such as campfires that become uncontrollable, improperly handled cigarettes, or arson. Although wildfires occur worldwide, they are most common in the western United States. There, high temperatures, drought, and frequent lightning and thunderstorms can create the perfect setting for wildfires. While they can be destructive and sometimes even deadly for humans, wildfires do play an important role in nature. They can help a forest by removing harmful insects or diseased plants, and they can clear thick canopies to help sunshine reach seedlings on a forest floor. By being aware of the conditions necessary for wildfires to occur, they can be managed and prevented, thereby saving lives and making way for the positive effects of wildfires.
Okay. The next slide.
A wildfire is an uncontrolled and unpredictable fire that burns in natural areas like forests, grasslands, and prairies that can be caused by people or nature. Hot, dry, and windy conditions increase the risk of wildfires. California is the state with the most risk for wildfires. Some of the most recent and destructive wildfires are the 2021 Dixie Fire, which is shown in the image on the left, the 2020 Bay Area Fire, and the 2018 Camp Fire. And no, I'm not talking about the fire we tell stories around, but I'm talking about the most deadliest and most destructive wildfire in the history of California. Next slide, please.
There are multiple steps to take in order to prepare for a wildfire. Firstly, find multiple ways to leave your area and know possible evacuation routes and shelter locations. Know who has medical conditions around you that may need medical help, such as those with asthma, COPD, or heart disease. Make sure to put important documents in a secure, password-protected digital space. If the documents cannot be digitalized, put them in a fireproof safe like the one shown in the image on the top right. In the event where having a shelter in place is recommended, make sure that you have chosen a room you can close off from the outside air and set up a portable air cleaner or a filter like the ones shown in the image on the bottom right to prevent breathing in the smoke. Using N95 masks can also help. Fill sinks and tubs with cold water and keep doors and windows closed but unlocked in case an evacuation is recommended. Next slide. Next is landslides with Gauri and Shloka.
Hi, my name is Shloka, and we're going to be presenting mudslides and landslides. So here's an image of a mudslide and land. Like you can see the mudslide taking control over the cars. So the cars don't have any power. Okay, to start off, what is a mudslide? A mudslide is when debris, for example, rocks and other earth materials, move down a slope. And then a form of a mudslide, a landslide is a mudslide. And a mudslide is when the debris moves and flows into a channel, for example, a river.
Hello everyone, my name is Godi. I'm going to be talking about some of the major mudslides slash landslides that have occurred. Some of the major landslides and mudslides that have occurred is the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens volcano in Washington State, USA. Another one is the Oso landslide, and a more recent one is the 2018 Maryland flood in Ellicott City. This flood caused many landslides and mudslides that damaged many vehicles, cars, houses, roads, like all these things. Some of you may have heard of this flood or maybe even experienced it. Another one is the North India flood mudslide in Gatornan, India. The 2013 North India flood occurred at the beginning of summer in June 16th, 2013. The North Indian state of Uttarakhand was having devastating floods and landslides that were caused by a rapid melting of ice on the Kedarnath mountain. Several deaths also occurred because of this. You may have also heard of landslides occurring in Kerala. There's actually a Malayalam movie called Malayan Kunya, which is a really powerful kind of story that really portrays the seriousness and the seriousness of landslides and how dangerous they can be. And next slide, please.
So unfortunately, landslides and mudslides are very unexpected. They can happen at any time, anywhere. So when you're preparing for one, and you go to an area that's prone to mudslides, landslides, you can figure this out by if you're in a mountain area or if there's signs around that says, please be cautious. But the way for you to be alert is just by hearing sounds that seem unusual. For example, trees cracking or boulders knocking each other.
Another thing you need to be is be alert, always be alert. That can really help you in certain situations, just so you know your surroundings and everything that's happening around you.
And if you are ever trapped, it's a pretty bad situation. So you want to try to escape and get as high as possible.
Should I go to the next slide or the?
Yeah.
Okay. So that brings us to climate change, which many of you may be already aware of how important of a topic that is. So it's going to be presented by Devan and Vishnu. I don't believe Vishnu is here, who has joined today, but Devan will be continuing on. Devan.
Hi, I'm David, and I'm going to be talking about climate change. So what is climate change? Climate change is the change in temperature on Earth over time. More recently, the temperature of the Earth has been increasing very rapidly due to the increase in carbon emissions. Carbon emissions are caused by objects such as cars, factories, and the burning of fossil fuels. Climate change is a significant issue on Earth because if the temperatures keep rising, then human beings will no longer be able to live on Earth with the intense heat. Now we will watch a quick video that goes into further depth on climate change.
This is the world. That's you and that's me. The world has the perfect temperature to keep all living things alive and happy. This temperature depends on a balance. The sun's heat goes to Earth to make it warm. The sun's heat bounces back to space to make the Earth cool. When this balance is lost, the climate changes. The Earth's climate has changed many times before. This is called natural climate change. It's caused by volcanic eruptions, changes in the sun's energy, and changes in the Earth's orbit. Greenhouse gases also make the Earth warmer. They trap heat from the sun. Greenhouse gases are like a blanket covering the Earth. It started in the 1700s. Humans started to build more things. We burned coal to make electricity. We burned oil to make our cars and planes move. We use chemicals to make things. We cut down lots of trees. We burn gas to cook food. We dump lots of trash on landfills. We plant a lot more rice. All these things release greenhouse gases. Remember the blanket over the Earth? Because of humans, it got much, much thicker. When I get hot, I sweat. I even get dizzy. Imagine the Earth. Because it's hotter, glaciers and ice sheets are melting. Seas are rising, storms are getting stronger, some places are getting dry, even the sea is getting warmer. All living things are in big trouble. So what should we do? We need to change the way we live, so we can stop releasing so much greenhouse gases. That way, the Earth's blanket will go back to normal. We also need to be ready for what climate change will bring. In December, there will be a big meeting of nations. They'll meet in Paris to decide how each country can help. Their decision will decide the future of Earth, our home.
Go to the next slide.
Yeah. Some examples of the effects of climate change is the increase in temperatures year-long. Recently, you may have noticed that summers are much hotter than they were a couple years ago. This is due to climate change. Another issue is when carbon reaches the sky. It slowly breaks down the ozone layer. This layer reflects the rays of sun in order to keep the Earth cool. But when it breaks, it releases the sun's harsh rays, causing UV radiation and skin-related diseases. Another effect of climate change is the melting of our ice caps. The poles will melt much faster than it's meant to, and due to this, many animals like polar bears and other Arctic animals are losing their habitats. When the ice melts, there's also an increase in water flow, causing natural disasters. If the water is then combined with heat from the sun, it can cause hurricanes and tsunamis. Some ways to slow down the effects of climate change is to reduce fossil fuel usage. This includes the burning of coal, gas, and oil. We can also fix houses with electric heat pumps instead of burners, reducing the amount of fossil fuels that we use. Another solution that we can do is to plant more trees. Trees act as carbon sinks, absorbing all the excess carbon in the atmosphere, then releasing oxygen. And finally, we can reduce the number of cars and other emission-releasing vehicles by using bikes, commercial vehicles, electric vehicles, or walking. All of these options save money and saves the environment.
Okay, thank you, David. Thank you all the leads who presented each topic very in detail and giving us identifying factors of what each of them are and how to prepare for each of them. And here is just a general idea of how we would prepare for any disaster. So this is basically the general overarching themes that you have seen while the leads were talking. Okay, it's all summarized in a video. Okay. So if you have a paper and a notebook, definitely go ahead and write them down. It's also online. We will be sharing this presentation as well.
When disaster strikes, there's often little to no time to think about how you're going to react, but being prepared helps tremendously. Here are 6 tips you can follow to keep you and your family safe during a natural disaster. Number 1, know where to go. Just in case you're ordered to evacuate, keep a list of potential places that you can take shelter that are outside of the disaster zone. Contact your local emergency management agency if you need assistance. Number 2, create a go bag. Disaster supply kit, including a flashlight, batteries, cash, first aid supplies, medications, and copies of your important documents. Having this kit in place will allow you to grab and go without worrying about what you left behind. And if you have a pet, remember to bring food and other supplies for your furry friend. Number 3, if you're not forced to evacuate and you decide to stay home, stock up with adequate supplies in case you lose power and running water for several days. Common supplies include water, portable generators, a heat source, and battery-operated or solar radio. Number 4, create a family communications plan so that everyone in your circle can keep in touch in case of a disaster. Establish a group chat on apps like iMessage or WhatsApp. Even purchase a few walkie-talkies in case cell service is disrupted. Number 5, charge your electronics. You may go days without electricity, so it's smart to keep your electronics charged and ready in advance of an approaching disaster like a hurricane. Make sure to limit your use so you can make your battery last as long as possible. And number 6, if your area is flooded, avoid walking or driving through floodwaters. Just 6 inches of moving water can knock you off your feet. It may be electrically charged from downed power lines and may contain dangerous debris that can hurt you. If your home is flooding, do not take shelter in the attic. Instead, climb onto the rooftop to await rescuers. Being informed and ready is the best way to prepare for natural disasters. Hopefully with these 6 tips, you're able to weather the next one. For more information on how to prepare for natural disasters, visit www.ready.gov for more resources. Stay safe.
That is a summary of all the things that we heard throughout the presentation today. And
when disaster strikes, there's often little.
And that comes to the end of disasters and how to prepare for disasters. And before we get to emergencies, I'm going to quickly stop sharing for a second and ask if anyone has any questions about the disasters, the presentations that you got. You have any questions for the leads, so that they can give you more information or tell you where to go. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. If you have any questions in the chat, I'm just going to check that too. Okay, it looks like we don't have any questions in the chat either. Okay, so if you have no other questions, hopefully you are taking notes on how to prepare for it. Okay, we'll go ahead and then continue with our presentation. Anna, are you ready?
Yeah. Go ahead, Fatima.
Okay. So the rest of them about emergencies, how to prepare for an emergency. This is something that Anilandan and me, we kind of thought that we would go out and talk to the parents about. This is mainly things that would concern parents as far as how they would give that information to their kids. So actions need to be kind of taken by the parents. The other information was also something that the youth can help with and they need to be aware of, so that we're very glad that they researched the topic, they came up with all the information, and hopefully they'll learn that process and they're able to share that with others as well. Okay. So how to prepare for an emergency at home in the US. So we are all in the US here, but then we're all kind of have relatives or family back in India. So there are 2 types of emergencies that we may face. One is in the house here, or to our friends or family that are in the US, as well as emergencies that could happen back home or in India, where you may have relatives or family, and there could be an emergency there. So before we get started, I want everyone to genuinely answer this question. Whether, do you know when your passport or visa is expiring? Again, if you haven't thought about it before, see if you do remember that, approximately at least an year or a month and a year. So that way, that's saying that you are kind of ready, right? That's the first thing that we would kind of need to have, especially when we're talking about emergencies. We heard that keeping important documents safe, but at the same time, they need to be updated. These are documents that are not necessarily everyone in the US may have, but then since we have roots back in India, we would definitely have passport and visa as an important document that we may not hear specifically mentioned in all these videos. So passports and visas are very important. Make sure that you have enough validity in that passport. So if your the second question was, can you travel to India if your passport is not expired? And the answer is yes, but there is a but to it, right? The but is that you need to have at least 6 months of validity remaining on that passport when you are traveling in India. So if your passport is about to expire and if you only, it's expiring in 6 months, then they may stop you at the airport. I don't know if they can deny entry or not, but that's something to be aware of. Okay. All right. So if you haven't thought about it, definitely go ahead and look it up and then see that. And the next question is, I'm going to go ahead and quickly hide this floating meeting controls. Okay. So how do you prepare for an emergency at home? Emergency at home could be that as a parent, let's say that I collapse or I go unconscious, and is there a plan that I have in my house that my kids know to do the next thing that needs to happen? So if someone collapses on the, parents are usually the doers in the house. They know what to do. They take action. They tell everyone what to do. But when the parent has, if a parent collapses or somebody else needs help, would the kids know what to do? So definitely during an emergency is definitely call 911. That's something that all the kids should be taught how to use. And again, use it responsibly. If we call 911 without any reason, we will get fined for it. And they will fine you for that. And provide, it's not just about fining. We could be calling them away from a real danger or real situation that they need to really attend to. So use 911 responsibility, so when we're teaching the kids to call 911, and we should also be telling them about how to use it responsibly. Provide identification information. So is your son or daughter able, or the younger ones at home, are they able to provide identification information? This also goes for senior parents. If we have parents at home who are visiting us from India, do they have our home address? Do they know our home address? Do they have the key phone numbers? They may not have to remember that, but then if there's a location somewhere that you have all of that information pasted, for example, like as a magnet on the fridge, or somewhere that they have ready access to without having to go up and down, it's readily available. So if you have a place and they know that, hey, my quick information is right here, they can go and look at their home address, key phone numbers, full name of parents' names. So younger kids may not really know the parents' full names, specifically, like how to spell it. They might not know. They may know it. They may or may not know. So to make sure that they know the names properly. Medications, so if it's a medical emergency, definitely have a list of current medications that whoever is having that emergency, do we know what that person is taking? Because that information is going to be needed when a hospital visit is needed, right? Or even if it's an urgent care, they're going to ask, what are the current medications that you're taking? So that's a very key information that we need to kind of have either in our wallet or tell our kids that, hey, I take these XYZ medications, at least something around it. Even if they don't know the name, they would know that they take a medication for this cause or for this reason. Emergency contacts, I kind of talked about it with here. Providing identification information is emergency contacts kind of thing, so that they have an order of the emergency contacts that the kid or the parents can call should there be an emergency. So for example, there might be the first person to call is definitely the parents, and if both the parents are not available, then who is the next person in line to be called? So have an order of who to reach out to, and have that number listed as well. How do you get prepared? How can you prepare ahead of time? That is, again, when you need to look at that emergency contact, that list needs to be available. So that needs to be made ahead of time. And it's very similar to the family file that we have on the kids' school system, where we would give who the emergency people are, who can pick the kids up. Similar to that, you need to have like an emergency contact numbers or a list for your family. Okay, and then make sure that that list, everybody knows where that list is. It's accessible to all the family members. Keep an emergency fund. This is something that, so kids, why do you need to know about that as to what is an emergency fund? An emergency fund is a fund that you keep away so that in case of an emergency, you have fund that you can access without having to borrow from someone else, or there might not be someone that we could borrow from at a time like that, or they may not have money to give to you. So, have a backup plan. So that is your emergency fund. So make sure sure when you're talking to your parents, ask them, do we have an emergency fund? It might not be there, but maybe that's something that we could think about and start having going forward. We already talked about important documents and kind of letting the kids know, hey, all the important documents that we need are in this area. At least have that information so that, let's say, if they are not able to access it when a responsible adult comes home to help them, that emergency contact that we have, they know, or the kid can direct them to where that information is so that they can retrieve it for the person. And again, make sure all the important documents are valid and not expired. So, driving license, car registrations, things like that. Make sure they're all valid and not expired, because kids might not know what any of these things are. They might not even know, what's a bank account, how many bank accounts you have, all that information. So with that, something that I haven't done yet, but I should do and been wanting to do is something, they all talk about trust and will. I know that Women's Forum did a thing about that. So definitely have that too. That is a very important thing to have, because that kind of gives you all these plans kind of get put into that part. Okay, the next is preparing for an emergency travel. If you have to travel to India for an emergency or any other country for an emergency, maybe there was a family emergency in India and you had to travel that same night. What do you do? So, I can talk from personal experience, but, this can happen to anybody where you get a call in the morning, you wake up and then something happened in India and you have to leave that night. Or let's say you get a call that night and then you have to go in the morning or whenever the next available flight is. So for that, you need to definitely have an emergency fund. So have that, find a plan for that and know how to get that or where that is. Important documents, make sure you have all of that. We talked about it, passports, visa, OCI, all of them are valid, and OCI don't expire. But then for kids, we know that every time a passport gets renewed, you have to make sure that the OCI kind of, I think they ask for a new book or something like that, or you take the older ones with you, old books with you, things like that. Then what is the process? So here it talks about review current travel advisories for your region during an emergency. Similar to that, you're going to be looking at what is the current status for all these documents, what's required and not required. Is there a visa on entry available now, or is it not available? Things like that. So be alert about that. And then have a general idea of how to get around in India on your own. So for a person, many of us here are not really older, or, so we still have parents back in India, which means usually there is somebody that's taking care of us when we get to India. From the time we land, somebody's there to pick us up. We don't even have to look at where we are going, what to eat. All of that is kind of taken care of for us. But then if you have to go on your own and there's an emergency and that person or people might not be available like that, you should know how to call an Uber, or how to exchange money, all that information. What is the actual address? How do you get there? How do you call a prepaid taxi? So know the ins and outs of how to make it on your own when you are there in an emergency. So you need to, so you don't want people taking advantage of you either, right? So things like that. And when there is an emergency, you call your travel agent and book the tickets, because they will be able to go ahead and get the information about flights that are, they could do different combinations and give you options to get there faster. That is how it worked for me better. Make arrangements at work. That one you should already probably know to take an emergency leave or a PTO. And if you're traveling alone, definitely make arrangements for your dependents if they're staying back. We talked about reviewing current travel advisories for your region. And then for issues with your passport and visa, know who to contact in the embassy. In the sense, not a person, but then where do you go? You go to embassy.gov.in. Is that where it is, or is there a different site? Like know where to go. You might not be in the right mindset to look up all that information and then do the research at that time. So having that information ahead of time and knowing, I know how to get there if I need help, or if it's an emergency, I know this is how I need to get my information done. have that process down so that you're able to take action without having to figure out how to do it. So those are the just general tips, but important to understand from a parent's perspective, especially since we are caring for not just our kids, sometimes for our parents, as well as we're still kind of responsible and care about people in India as well, relatives in India as well. So we kind of, have to be aware of both places. And that brings us to our end of the presentation.